Have you wondered about living elsewhere after you retire? Well, we have, almost daily. As you know, it's not an overnight decision. Hi, this is Gil.
And Jean.
Of Retire There, a podcast about places to consider living in after you retire. We started this show for selfish reasons. We planned on visiting cities earlier this year, spending some quality time not as tourists, but pretending to actually live there, to get a real sense and taste of the place. We made one trip in February, which was great, and we were planning for the next trip.
Then COVID hit.
Yeah. A little background about us. I was born in Brazil, South America, from an Asian family, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a college attorney who loves her job working with students, faculty, and staff.
I was born and raised in Long Island, New York. And I'm a law librarian working in a court who also loves his job. We've lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, New York for many years and have been thinking about our future home.
So we will be speaking to folks from around the country who have moved to venues of their dreams and more. And we will share their intimate secrets.
What?
Just kidding. But we'll offer information you may not find anywhere else. So stay tuned. In today's episode, we will be speaking to a lovely couple who made Lancaster, Pennsylvania their dream home. Before we start, here's a little background about our guests. Jean and Ed Neff are natives of West Virginia. Separately and together, they have lived in that state, in Michigan, Missouri, Texas, Pennsylvania, New York, and Maryland. They have lived for the past 5 years at Willow Valley Communities in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a 55 and over life plan community of around 2,500 residents.
Ed is a graduate of Mercersburg Academy and Miami University of Ohio. He spent most of his career in the insurance industry, first as an owner of an independent agency, and then as principal of the Compass Company Risk Management Consultants, a business he sold upon retirement in 2007. He has served on the boards of nonprofit retirement communities, arts organizations, and public media facilities, including WQED in Pittsburgh, WMHT in New York's Capital Region, and WITF in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And now Gil will tell us about Jean, who, by the way, has a wonderful name.
Okay, Jean, I'm going to have to differentiate the two of you. Maybe I'll call you Gino. So Jean Neff retired in 2008 after 13 years as president of the Sage Colleges in Troy and Albany, New York. Before that, she had been academic vice president at Susquehanna University and the former Wheeling Jesuit University. A graduate of WJU, she earned advanced degrees from Rice University and Carnegie Mellon University. She has served on boards of national higher education organizations, regional planning and economic development groups, hospitals, and community banks. Whew. The both of you have done quite a bit of work. Thank you. So guys, welcome to our show, and please share your journey with us.
We'll be happy to.
Jean, would you like to start and bring us to your process of how you guys decided in Lancaster?
Well, we were always going to move at some point to a life care community like the one we're in at Willow Valley. We knew the industry very well because of Ed's background on boards of retirement communities and because as a college president, I had visited alums and donors all over the country in similar facilities. So we also had a lot of visual cues in terms of what things were like and what we could expect. We had a list of criteria that ranged from financial strength to accreditation. We were particularly interested in that at an early stage. Whether or not the institution was willing to support alcoholic beverages, that may sound funny, but it's very difficult to live in a dry community where you end up having a cocktail at home rather than with dinner, for example. And we were looking to be, in general, within striking distance of New York. We had lived previously at Deep Creek Lake in western Maryland, which is just south of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we were thinking that we would go over the mountains, go over east once again, and connect with New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC, those cities. And that eventually brought us to Lancaster, which is a kind of a sweet spot in that territory. I'll let Ed say his piece.
Well, the other thing is airports. And Philadelphia airports, Baltimore airport are less than 2 hours away. And the Harrisburg airport with direct flights to Atlanta is only an hour away. So that was an important factor also.
Our son's in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's key.
It turned out that Lancaster has a very busy Amtrak station. So that was one of the clinchers for us.
What is a life planning community?
A life planning community is also known and used to be known as a life care community. But the important thing about Willow Valley as a life care community or a life planning community is that it has a Type A contract, which guarantees that your monthly fee will pay all additional fees required if you enter into any of the care facilities or skilled nursing or everything. There would be no additional costs involved. And that's an extremely important factor for a lot of people.
And also very rare. There are fewer and fewer retirement communities that offer a Type A contract. Willow Valley has made a strong commitment to that, as well as being a 55 and over, very active lifestyle community. So it's a wonderful blend of both worlds in effect.
Is it becoming less and less because more people are learning about it and the costs are going up?
The Type A contract is fading a bit because people are living longer. Many communities that started out with that model did a poor job of planning, I would say. They realized in the middle of things that the costs to the management of a Type A contract are considerable if you don't plan for that in your whole structure. Willow Valley is extremely well run financially, and from the beginning they were committed to that model, and they have done a lot of things to make sure that it's on firm ground.
So I know there are about 20 55 plus communities in your area. What are the other reasons you picked Willow Valley? Yes.
We have friends who moved here before we did, a year or so earlier than we did. And since that time, there are now 12 people who moved here from our former home, partly because of us, but partly because of other friends that came along also.
Okay, that's great.
Wow. And what facilities does it have? Are there restaurants there?
Yes. There are 11 different dining facilities ranging from cafes to a full-dress gourmet restaurant with a wonderful bar. There's a theme here, really upscale dining and everything in between. You can, if you're on the meal plan, which is sort of like a debit card arrangement, you can use that at any of the dining facilities, including that upscale restaurant. So it is one of the wonderful amenities here. The unfortunate thing is that the COVID-19 issues have caused all of our eat-in restaurants to be closed for eat-in dining, and everything is takeout right now. But in our building, we also have a very good restaurant called Four Seasons.
Oh, so there's a restaurant within your own building.
We're in an apartment complex as opposed to one of the many townhomes, villas, you name it. There's every kind of accommodation here you can imagine. We chose to live in an apartment building called Spring Run, and it does have its own restaurant, this particular complex, and it's very popular with people from other neighborhoods, I guess you would say, in Willow Valley.
There are 4 apartment complexes on the 2 campuses, and apartment complexes, large buildings. Each of those buildings has a dining room and ours is the premier in the building we're in, and you have to have a reservation to eat in our dining room. When there was seating in the dining room, but everybody is still doing takeout.
Okay.
It's as if
The
you never
other
left college.
The other important factor about Willow Valley is its pure size. And when we first looked at Willow Valley, we thought it was way too large. But you don't get the amenities of the clubhouse with that fine dining environment. You don't get the cultural center with a 500-seat performing arts center, a huge fitness center, a very large indoor pool, a spa, a dance floor, sprung dance floor for tap dancing and the like. Those facilities are just wonderful, and they're only because we are 2,500 residents can they afford to do those things.
That's amazing. Did you mention a gym? Is there a gym?
There are several gyms. This particular gym has probably 50 pieces of equipment in it.
I'm trying to think. There are multiple facilities on the two campuses. The campuses are about a mile apart. Besides the indoor pool that Ed was describing on this campus, on the other campus at the clubhouse, there's an outdoor pool, tennis courts,
pickleball, a small fitness center, bowling alley, a golf driving range.
So do you find
machines, which are loved?
Yeah, that really got me. I heard there's a arcade with some older games, including pinball machines. It's wonderful.
One of the things that Willow Valley encourages is the presence of grandchildren and families in general. There is a camp for grandkids in June each year called Camp Willow. The grandchildren come and stay with their grandparents and are in what amounts to a day camp each day. It's a lot of fun. And the pinball arcade that Ed was talking about is very popular with that bunch.
So U.S. News and World Report listed just this month Lancaster, Pennsylvania as the 5th best city to retire. Do you think that you obviously agree with that, but you probably think it should be even ranked higher, right? What do you do outside of your apartment complex? Because it sounds like you have everything right at your fingertips, but do you go anywhere outside for food shopping, that kind of thing?
The city of Lancaster has seen an incredible growth in the last half dozen years or more. There are a number of really fine dining opportunities, from small pizza places to French restaurants that have sprung up in the center city of Lancaster. There is a very old local market that has been around for several hundred years in downtown Lancaster that is very popular. The arts thrive in Lancaster. There's a performing arts theater. There's a smaller venue next door to it that is owned by one of the local universities, and they have a fine offering every year of concerts that are extremely well attended. There's shopping, great little local shops, and within an hour, there's major shopping in the Philadelphia area and Harrisburg area. So there's just plenty to do. Plus, there's this huge Amish residential farming community here, and the influence of the Amish is very strong.
Yeah, we noticed that. Jean, didn't you say there was parking for horse and buggy or something in one?
Yeah, I read that at the local Costco has parking for horse and buggies.
Yeah, there are lots of places that provide parking rails for horses. One of the interesting things about Lancaster is that Tom Friedman of the New York Times came here a few years ago to give a talk, and he had a day or so to see the community, and he was able to speak with a lot of the people, government and nonprofits and that sort of thing, who've worked together to bring about this kind of renaissance. And he wrote about it in the New York Times a couple of weeks later. He was so impressed with what he saw. Lancaster is a very progressive city. It is particularly known for resettling refugees and immigrants, beginning with the Vietnamese in the 1970s. And since then, just about every other country you can imagine. There's a very diverse community here, also a very large Latino presence in the city of Lancaster, about 25%. That enriches all kinds of things. It sets against the Amish community in many ways, but they coexist beautifully. We enjoy just everything about the city. Again, unfortunately, constrained in recent times. But as you'd said in your introduction, Ed serves on a public media outlet in Harrisburg. I've served on a committee of the hospital board here, and I'm part of a group called Women United, which is affiliated with the United Way and is a women's philanthropic group. One of the interesting things about the United Way in Lancaster is that it's adopted the concept of, instead of the many little charities, there are 4 bold goals. Many organizations in Lancaster join to support. So they're focused particularly on lowering the poverty rate, improving education, things like that. It's very exciting. It's a vibrant city.
We didn't talk about, but should, medical care.
Yes.
When we arrived, we, like every other person in the world, has to go through the challenge of finding new churches, new medical care, and all of those services. When we arrived 5 or 6 years ago, Lancaster General Hospital was pointed out as being the major choice for us, and we quickly signed up with Lancaster General Hospital for a number of services, and we went and found family physicians. We're very, very happy to find our medical care, our dental care, our eye care, our hearing care, and those services are all very important. But then Lancaster General Hospital affiliated with Penn and is now part of the Penn system. We could not be happier with the services at LGH, and an organization that is part of theirs called the Heart Group, and there are 28 or more cardiologists in that practice. And as a heart patient, we both can speak to the high praise that we have for LGH and the Heart Group and all of the medical services that we're using here in the Willow Valley communities.
That's wonderful. That is so
Well,
important.
once again, the access to Philadelphia and Baltimore and New York gets us to major medical centers very quickly. Where we lived before, it was an hour in either direction just to get to a regional hospital from up in the mountains. So this is much more convenient, and the quality of care is just terrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should also point out that there is a nurse in every one of the major buildings that is in present 24 hours a day. The nursing services is your gateway, and it's very, very good.
Wow, this is truly like a college, a university and campuses.
It resembles a college campus. On each campus, there is also a social worker who helps deal with issues that are not strictly medical, but just the kind of 2,500 people living in a community, you have all sorts of other kinds of issues as well. So that too is very well run.
I'll bet.
Yes, like a college.
Yeah, exactly. So there must be a wait list to get in, right? It's 2,500 residents, and the other complex is a mile away. And how many residents are in that one?
It's 2,500 in total for both campuses. There is a wait list for certain kinds of residences. Just now, the last piece of property on our campus is being built out, and they have been building a total of 88, basically luxurious villas, I would say. They're semi-detached facilities, but they're very lovely. They sold out very quickly, almost in the first month that they were advertised, and they've been getting them up as fast as they can. So there are wait lists for townhomes, villas, those kinds of residences. There are wait lists for in our complex has some of the largest apartment residences, and there are wait lists for the popular models. We live in an apartment that has about 2,000 square feet, for example.
Wow.
Which is
Wow.
one of
Big.
the larger. But you can also find apartments here, one-bedroom facilities that are obviously much smaller and much less expensive. We should add that we look very seriously at the possibility of some communities in Philadelphia because we were thinking we wanted to be more urban. But we discovered that the cost, both the buy-in cost and the monthly fee, and the square feet and the amenities involved, the cost was about 150% of the cost here, and the amenities were probably 50% of the ones here. So when I talk about Lancaster as a sweet spot, it's also an economic sweet spot in that the cost of labor and just costs in general are considerably lower than in an urban location.
Wow, what a big difference. And you're so close yet to Philly if you want to be there.
It's kind of a have your cake and eat it too situation.
Yeah.
This last section of the campus we're on that's being built out right now also has on the planning boards, and it got put on the back burner because of COVID, but it's going to build out a new care center for Alzheimer and other memory kinds of issues. And it will be a state-of-the-art memory care center that will have an affiliation with some medical experts in the field, some social experts to help not only the families, but the individuals who are suffering from memory issues. And it will expand the number of Alzheimer beds or memory beds that we are available at the Willow Valley communities. Unfortunately, that project has been put on hold because of the COVID experience, and it shut down the efforts that are being mounted to make that a reality.
We should add that the other project in Willow Valley's future is an urban one. They have bought a former newspaper printing facility, a big complex, which is going to be, it's right in the center of town and across from another of the historic market buildings. And that will become a high-rise apartment building with a rooftop lounge. And Willow Valley has also helped to buy into the market complex, which is being turned into a culinary arts teaching facility. Wow. And a lot of mini restaurants, I guess you would call them. And they'll be running a shuttle from our campus into downtown once that facility is built so that we can all go back and forth. But I for one, if that had been available when we were first looking, I would have been very interested in it because it would just be a very lively place to be.
Yeah. Well, you can still do that.
Not likely at this point, but I think the point that we're both making is that Willow Valley is really exceptional among retirement communities national because it's so forward looking. It's always asking the question, what's around the corner? It's not looking to serve as its leading edge those of us that are perhaps turning the corner of the far side of aging, but they're really looking at that 55 and over group, and they're saying, what's the next generation going to want by way of these kinds of facilities? The motto here is life lived forward.
I love that. Is this being prompted by like the city planners? I mean, this is very mindful and future looking, like you said. What the impetus is is coming from where? I mean, are your voices heard as well? Or do you participate in that kind of conversation going on in the city?
In the city, yes. And again, as I've been very moved by the United Way's ability in a very non-traditional way to be part of that larger city planning. There's also a city of Lancaster City Alliance, a freestanding nonprofit that also helps to pull everything together. And I think that's what Tom Friedman was struck by, is the coherence of planning. The CEO of the Willow Valley organization more broadly is very active in the downtown groups. And again, when you make the college analogy, as you know, colleges around the country have been buying into the cities and towns where they have their campuses to help in the revitalization of those towns. And in this case, Willow Valley is doing that in Lancaster.
What about retirees who want to move to Lancaster but don't want to live in the 55-plus community? Do many of them buy homes or condos in the area?
Yeah, actually, we have friends, a couple from Philadelphia, who recently moved to one of the many repurposed historic manufacturing buildings in Lancaster. A lot of the old textile industry buildings, for example, have been remade into loft apartments, and they are in a small building in one of those apartments. And they have never, interestingly, they always lived in the suburbs of Philadelphia. They've never lived in an urban center, and they're really loving being downtown.
Willow Valley also has a service that they're selling to people who do not live on campus, but are buying into an early life care contract. And I'm not sure they get a type A contract, but they do. It gives them a heads up and a start to move into Willow Valley at some point in the future, but it provides a lot of services to them in their homes in the greater Lancaster area.
And they have access to many of the amenities here as well. It's called Smart Life. So you can basically live downtown, have a connection to Willow Valley, but not yet move here. And if and when those folks do decide they want to move into a Willow Valley campus, if you will, they get a priority on wait list. They also bring these people together from time to time just for social reasons, so that they get to know each other and get to know Willow Valley.
Oh, is there any kind of interview process to be admitted to Willow Valley, community kind of?
Marketing would love to talk to you, and you can contact them at 1-800-555-1212.
You're funny. Eh?
Yes, and I'm a good advertiser.
One of the things we have not touched on is the amount of major manufacturing that goes on in Lancaster County. This is the home of Armstrong World Industries.
Oh, yeah.
And the major manufacturer of farm equipment, whose name slips me as I speak.
And Rock Lidditz.
Rock Lidditz is an extremely closely held but extremely important staging effort. These people build and develop complete stages and all of the background work for road shows, stadium shows for major entertainers.
And a lot of musicians come to record in their facilities. It's a very big complex that's grown over the years. It's in the little town of Lidditz, which is about half an hour from Lancaster, maybe less. And Lidditz also has a wonderful boutique-y little downtown shopping area. A growing number of, again, luxury apartments, restaurants, and the like. I think you can hear in a lot of what we're saying why this is kind of a mecca for retirees, because when we say those things in New York, you'd be talking about millions of dollars. In this area, you're talking about hundreds of thousands for, really, really luxurious accommodations.
Wow.
Yes, yeah, and during COVID, so many people have moved out, and while there have been opportunities in New York, I think people are starting to realize the opportunities outside, such as nearby Philadelphia. I mean, two of my sisters live in Pennsylvania, and they're about, I think, an hour to where you are, and I mentioned Lancaster, and they couldn't really compete. Yeah.
I have a question about taxes. How are seniors treated concerning taxes in Pennsylvania and also in Lancaster?
I don't think taxes was a major factor because tax policy can change as the government changes. The overall factor financially that drew us here was the total financial impact, not only on our current living situation, but on our estate planning. So while taxes are an issue for some people and estate taxes drive some people, they were not something that we considered as a major factor in deciding where we would want to be.
Also, with the Type A contract, I think about 40% of our initial buy-in amount in that 1 year was tax deductible because that portion of it, and here's the wise planning on the part of Willow Valley, goes into the medical fund. When we say that if you ever have to go to a care facility, there's no additional charge, it's because there's a large medical fund that's already created to cover that. Well, this large chunk of your initial buy-in goes into that fund and is tax deductible, and about 25% of the monthly fee also goes into a medical fund and is tax deductible. I would add that Pennsylvania does not have tax on clothing or food.
Also, Pennsylvania does not have tax on retirement income. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's key to a lot of this stuff.
I should add something. We're people who don't want to play games to avoid paying taxes. Taxes are what support the social safety net and the infrastructure, our town, our city, our country, and we're not in the mode of being tax evaders.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that publicly.
Yes.
I do have a question about, it's come up quite often with many others. Was the move difficult in terms of, physically, psychologically? You were in upstate New York for a good portion of time.
Every move that a family makes is the most strenuous, difficult move and time in their lives. It challenges every fiber of the individuals, and it's just a very, very tense, difficult time. Willow Valley knows that, and Willow Valley works very hard to make sure that the tension is kept at a minimum and gives you all of the support you need. But downsizing for anyone at any time is a very difficult challenge. And my lovely wife did an extremely good job. That's the polite words that I use in downsizing over a 3-year period before we moved in here. She got rid of a lot of stuff. And that's good.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing.
We sold our house at the lake as a furnished property, which is typical for a lake community to do that. And we ended up putting a number of items in storage before we listed the house. We restricted some of the items on the listing. So when we moved here, we pretty much had what we wanted. And we did buy some new items for the apartment. And we've been just very, very happy. We each have 2 or 3 things we wish we had brought with us, but we survived the very tense period. We couldn't be happier after 5 or 6 years at Willow Valley.
But I need to say something about the psychological change. making the decision that you're going to move to what amounts to the last place you're going to live is momentous because you have that hanging over you as a thought always. Ed was more reluctant to pull that trigger than I was, as you can imagine when you hear that I was planning for several years to downsize. We were really, really glad that we were 70, in our early 70s when we came here, and we weren't by any means the youngest people here. But had we waited, let's say, the 5 years that we've been living here, it would have been close to awfully late to enjoy everything we're talking about.
Right.
The city, the region, the community. We've been an active part of it. Ed's a bicycler, and there's a group here that goes out onto trails and roads and that sort of thing. And you want to still be able to enjoy those things. And we have the hardest thing for us, I think, was giving up close friendships. We'd been a part of the community. We'd owned our home at Deep Creek for over 25 years, and we were very knitted in to that territory. And it was really the hardest thing to say, okay, we're going to go away. But we were blessed by a very good friend who had a detached guest cottage on her property at the lake, and she has essentially made it accessible to us for whenever we want to go there. So that certainly has eased the transition. We can go back and see our friends and have a life here as well. And we've made many friends in this area too.
Yeah, that's nice that you had that. That's really nice. Yeah, the move itself, I know, is it's tough. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. We're a couple of years away from retiring. You know, we've lived in this house for about 19 years, and we've been trying to declutter and minimize, and it just sometimes it's overbearing.
Does your residence include space downstairs, storage space?
We have a cage in the garage. Our apartment size gives us a parking space in the garage. But every resident in all of the Willow Valley communities has a storage cage someplace. In the larger apartment buildings that don't have the garages, their storage cages are strategically placed in parts of the apartment complex that wouldn't be saleable because they didn't have windows.
The villas and townhouses and et cetera here all have attics, for one thing. They're, extra high ceilings, and they've all got an attic space as well as ample closet space. I think that's one of the things that made this particularly attractive for me. We still have space left in our closet. That was one of the things I think Willow Valley, when they did focus groups early on, they asked about what things were most important, and people said closets. So everywhere there are really large walk-in closets. There's in an area called the Gables, which again are sort of duplex kind of townhouses, I guess you'd say. One of them, at least, the largest of those floor plans, has got 3 bedrooms and a den and an attic and more floor space than basements with ground level
and a garage.
A 2-car garage actually. Wow. And plenty of room to have an extra bedroom on the ground floor with a walkout patio at that level. They're very, very large. One of our questions when we visited and were shown some of those was, why would we want to move from a house into a house?
Right, exactly.
It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I want a ranch or just a single floor or single story. Yeah. None of this climbing and basements and, who needs that anyway? Do you guys, you need to have a car, it sounds like, or are things walking distance? Can you go outside to, a block or two away for a cup of coffee? I know Gene here is one of these walkers, and he loves to, explore the neighboring areas and what's close by.
The campuses are both large enough that there are a number of walking trails. You can pick up a trail map in the fitness center, and there are 1 mile to 5 mile walking paths on the two campuses. In terms of getting out into the community itself, the city of Lancaster, there's a small strip mall adjacent to campus that's in Lancaster, and a block away from the campus that is in the town of or community of Willow Street, which is where we live. There's a shopping center people could walk to, but most people use a car to get off campus. There's public bus service and there's private bus service run by Willow Valley that'll take you to the town to shop, to doctor's appointments, or to the local strip malls. So there's plenty of transportation available. Plus, there is individual car service in the afternoons for people that need a ride someplace.
We have 2 cars. Let me put it that way. We do very different things. We go in very different directions, and it is not easy to. There's a Starbucks very close by, in as the crow flies, but to get there, you have to cross a busy 4-lane highway. There are 2 major arteries that run through between the campuses. They're each 2-lane one way, but you have a lot to cross if you're going to walk. You can physically do it, but it's not very pretty.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Getting back to the city of Lancaster, are you familiar with the controversy concerning all the closed circuit cameras they have?
The CCTV?
Apparently they have 164 closed circuit cameras.
They do. Part of that arises from Lancaster's history, and particularly before the last 15 years or so. It was perceived as, and actually was, a pretty, I would say it could have gone in either direction, which is to say down or up. And there was a lot of street crime. Lancaster has neighborhoods close in and out, some of which are challenging at night and that sort of thing. And I think much of that system was established at that time. It's the big brother kind of issue that some people resent and don't want. On the other hand, along with body cams for police and iPhones for the rest of the world, it is one way of capturing what really happens in a given incident.
The Lancaster community is no different from any other community, city, or village in the country in facing those issues, with the singular exception that Lancaster is doing a better job than many places in making neighborhoods safe and friendly.
That sounds, yeah, absolutely. So I have one final question, and that is, have you had any surprise having moved to Lancaster?
How happy we are.
Oh, yay. That is such a nice answer. And that's wonderful. That's what we want. That's what we want. So have we left anything else out, do you think?
I was just going to add, we didn't really choose Lancaster per se. We chose Willow Valley. After we got here, we discovered Lancaster. And that, as Ed says, has been a wonderful journey, a very happy one.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yes.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you guys. This has been a really enjoyable hour. And we hope to visit you real soon, actually, and then give you a call when we come by.
We have a guest suite.
Oh, okay. Get that ready.
Willow Valley is right now converting what was a personal care facility into guest suites for the marketing department as Willow Valley built a new skilled care building. They were able to take those personal care suites and turn them into marketing apartments.
All right. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful.
We're very
Thank you. And, I think the Willow Valley marketing department will be happy to hear this podcast, Ed. All right. Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed our show and will join us again.
And if you know someone who relocated after retirement or before or during and wishes to share their story, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Our information will be in the show notes below. They include our email address, gg@retirethere.com. The 2 G's are for Gil and Jean. Our website is retirethere.com. And you can follow us on Twitter @retirethere_. Remember the underscore, or you'll get us mixed up with someone else.